Hello, everybody.
Hi, I'm John,
I'm Maria.
and this is our third Empowered Relationship podcast. And our theme for today in relationships and empowered relationships is all about this kind of idea of falling in love with somebody. So often when we meet somebody for the first time, if there's chemistry and attraction, we say we fall in love with the person. A lot of the time it's not necessarily a conscious thing we do. However, as time goes on, often that feeling can wear off. And some people say, oh, well, I've fallen out of love now, and so therefore it's the end of the relationship. Without recognizing that, from an empowered point of view, falling in love is a process. As the poet David White would say, I fall in love with the other person with the recognition of my sure defeat. So at some stage along the line, I know that feeling will be challenged or will be broken or I'll fall out of love. And that's normal. That's supposed to happen, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess to go back to the beginning, when we feel a deep connection or a deep attraction towards somebody, we need to keep in mind that there are two things happening. We might feel what I call a conscious connection, which means the other person kind of ticks the boxes of our list, whatever they might be. But then there is an unconscious connection. And this unconscious connection is usually based on the wounds that we share and the wounds that somehow we know that we can heal or play out with the other person.
In the relationship. Right.
So just because we feel an attraction towards somebody or we feel we're in love with somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are the one or they are the person that we are meant to spend the rest of our lives together.
Well, absolutely. I think the idea would be when I'm in love with somebody, I think, oftentimes we think, well, this person now will fulfill me, isn't it?
Yeah.
This person will fulfill the emptiness I might have in myself, or will somehow fulfill the loneliness and so on. And obviously that doesn't last, does it, Maria?
No, because the thing is, anytime that we put the responsibility of who we are and the way we express love and what we need to receive, when we put that onto somebody else, we're pretty much creating a codependent relationship, and we are putting the other person as the source of love, the source of happiness, the source of passion, the source of romance, when in fact the source of love happens within. And once we have connected with that truth within ourselves, that the source of love is within, then we can co-create a loving space in the relationship where we can grow and evolve and go deeper into love.
Absolutely, and I think that's the key understanding, isn't it, from a conscious relationship point of view, is that I find in my relationship I'm often falling in love because we choose to do that and realize it's a process. As Bruce Lipton, the writer, would say, he calls it the honeymoon effect, and he says really healthy for us to feel like we're in love with the other person. But at a certain stage in the cycle of intimacy, we're going to fall out of love because our stuff comes up, either one person's or the other person's stuff, as Maria was saying, our shadow stuff or our woundedness arises. And when that happens, once we recognize that, hopefully the other person can hold a space in the relationship, either, or for the relationship, and realize, okay, now is the time to actually deepen the relationship with myself. And as Maria said, recognize, hold on, the source of love is within me, not the other person. And when I do that, when I'm able to bring it back to myself and deepen the relationship with myself, and the other person's able to do that as well, then we could say that's a healthy, growing, conscious relationship.
Because one of the purposes of a relationship is for personal growth, personal evolution, and also for the relationship to grow and the relationship to evolve. So sometimes when either one person in the relationship or the two people in the relationship, when they're not working on their own stuff, when they're not looking at their pain and their suffering and their wounds, that relationship can become toxic, meaning that that relationship has nowhere to go. Like we're meeting the same fight all the time, or we're meeting the same conflict all the time. So the relationship can't evolve. The individuals can't evolve, they can't grow. So, one of the purpose of the relationship, and is connected with that sense of being in love, is that when a conflict arises in the relationship, that is always an opportunity for deeper love, for deeper understanding, for deeper knowing. So it's very important that we are aware of the cycles of being in love, falling out of love, and this cycle keeps repeating itself through conflicts, wherever they might be. But we need to know that when the conflict arises, it's an opportunity for deeper love and deeper connection.
That's it. And once you recognize that, it makes all the difference. And then obviously it's having the courage then to start the cycle of intimacy again in the relationship. The courage and first of all, the vulnerability of taking it into yourself and deepening your own sense of connectedness and love within, and then bringing that back into the relationship again and starting the cycle of intimacy and allowing ourselves to fall in love again, knowing as always, with the knowing that there could be a defeat at some stage in that process, and recognizing that in that moment of defeat, if we go into vulnerability and responsibility, we can deepen our own loving relationship within ourselves and then come back to the relationship again. But as Maria said, if you're not working on yourself or recognizing that the primary relationship is with the self ultimately, or if one person isn't, then the relationship, we project our stuff onto the relationship and it becomes a bit toxic. Can you say more about how people play that out?
The thing is, there's two states. We can be in a state of disconnect, or we can be in a state of connection. So let's say John does something that I feel hurt by it, or I feel annoyed at it, or whatever I might feel. In this moment, I have to make a choice. Is my reaction, is it gonna be an action of disconnect? I might go like, well, you hurt me, well then I'm gonna hurt you. Or you hurt me, now I'm gonna ignore you, whatever it might be. I have that choice. Or I can choose to connect. So how do I connect? Knowing that maybe his action that, I felt hurt by it, I need to have a deeper understanding of what's going on with him, so that I have a deeper understanding of what's going on with me. So I can choose to create this connection by walking away, or I can choose to create connection by really connecting with what's going on for him and being honest about what's going on with me.
Absolutely, and I think that's the vulnerability that we need to maintain a healthy relationship. When I connect into what's going on with me, then when I come back to Maria, all of a sudden, from a place of vulnerability, I'm not reactive, I'm not playing out. There's an openness for both of us to just drop the issue, isn't there? And that makes all the difference.
Because, the biggest form of punishment is separation. To give somebody, the silent treatment, or to walk away. All of that is not coming from a loving place.
So we basically disrespect the relationship, isn't it? In some form or other, we pull back into ourselves, we pull away from the relationship piece. And okay, sometimes you might need to step back from the relationship to reconnect with yourself.
But you give the information.
As long as, Tell
you
the
say,
other person.
I need some time to
Yeah.
think about this. I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
So it's not an aggressive action of just, I'm not going to talk to you for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a loving action to say, okay, I need time to think about this.
To process it.
Yeah, I'll come back to you when I'm clear in my mind.
Yeah, and in a more vulnerable place in
Yeah.
myself. And of course, you know, oftentimes people ask, well, okay, if it's important to keep falling in love consciously in a relationship, how do you know if it's not the right relationship? And Maria said, you know, is this the one earlier on? I mean, I always feel that I am the one I've been looking for most of my life, or even my connection to oneness and the bigger picture. That's the one we're looking for ultimately. Yeah. And Maria obviously has really helped me to do that through our relationships dynamic. But perhaps if one person isn't working on themselves, or not even interested in being vulnerable or accepting that kind of personal responsibility, then we say the relationship can become toxic. And the way that that's played out is through power dynamics, isn't it? And different negative behaviors. Like what sort of behaviors might come out then, Maria?
Well, it could be like for somebody, for example, that has an abandonment wound. They will play out that by, you know, not being available, not being emotionally available. Or, you know, that can also play out, especially at the beginning when somebody's not emotionally available, might be that they give you everything up front. And it's a very intense relationship where, you know, you're the woman or the man of my life and I'm going to marry you and you're the one. And it's all very intense and very full on. And then suddenly, they cut off. Suddenly, that wound of being emotionally unavailable kicks in. And the other person is just left hanging without knowing what's happened. So that could be one way of when somebody has that and it hasn't worked on themselves or they're not aware, it can show up like that.
Yeah, and as we said in one of our other podcasts, the importance of recognizing that in a healthy relationship or an intimate relationship, we want to connect cognitively in terms of how, you know, sharing our thoughts, our emotions, our physical and spiritual values with each other, isn't it? And it's important that all those levels, to create a depth in our relationship, that all those levels are meeting in some way. And of course, the typical type of relationship abuse, you know, the more extreme types would be violence, physical violence, emotional violence, as Maria just talked to, one form of emotional violence, cognitive violence, where, you know, you're putting the other person down, you're not agreeing with them, you're telling, or over controlling, you're telling them what to do all the time. So really, these are ways where the relationship can become quite toxic.
And I believe that people can change. I've seen people changing, but they can only change if they want to change. It's not my job to change him, and it's not his job to change me. If we have an unhealthy pattern in our relationship, that change, that transformation will only happen if I want to change. So if you are stuck in a relationship, toxic relationship, and the other person or you are not willing to change, then you need to assess whether, you know, is it worthwhile to stay or to go. But I believe relationships can change because we can change, but it's only if we are willing to do the work and change.
Absolutely. And if one person is willing to change, it can change the relationship, even if the other person's not changing. And then, but ultimately, you know, it can change the relationship, or the person who's changed really recognizing, okay, this doesn't work for me anymore. Because if I'm doing the work on myself and working with the relationship, and the other person is not, is this where I want to be? And I guess a choice has to be made then. But at least it's a conscious choice. And the suffering, even if I choose to stay in that relationship, then I'm doing it with my eyes open.
And there's two important things that I think I'd like to mention is when we have the idea that there is the one, when we have the idea that once we fall in love with somebody, that is the person that we're meant to spend our life with, we might overlook the fact that we are in a toxic relationship and the other person is not willing to make it a healthy relationship. So we might become stuck in an unhealthy situation because of our idea that this is the person that I'm meant to be with and I'm never going to find somebody like this. So that's one thing that can keep us stuck in a toxic relationship. Now, the opposite is also true. The opposite, where there is, a normal relationship and some conflict comes up, and because we have the idea that when we meet the one, it'll be just amazing and it'll be like a Hollywood movie and nothing will happen, then we might end that relationship too soon, too quickly. Well, we won't give the other person a chance. So these are two opposites that sometimes can either make us be stuck in a relationship or can make us end relationships too quickly. So, as I said before, when a conflict comes up, it's an opportunity to go deeper into love.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Jim.
So thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed our podcast today. Please share it on Facebook or post some comments. Constructive comments, we're always interested. And thanks for watching.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.